And welcome to another show of Don't Get This Twisted. I am Rob, along with my co-host, as always, Tina. How you doing, Tina?
I'm hanging in there, Rob. I'm trying to stay cool here in El Paso.
Oh, awesome. So, Texas it is.
It's hotter than a mofo over here.
Hotter than Texas bull balls, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Hey, you know.
It is.
Yeah, you know, it's fun. It's summertime. Gotta love it. It's hotter than crap where I'm at. It was about 100 today. And this morning, a little humid. When I walked my puppy, it seemed a little yucky. Although I heard the East Coast is really yucky. Like it was like 90 degrees and 90% humidity and raining on the East Coast. Yeah, fun stuff.
Glad I'm not there.
Yeah, I agree. So
yeah, we're looking at 104 here.
Oh yeah. Oh, wow. 104. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
So today we are going to have a conversation with someone who was on our online dating show many moons ago. But today we're going to talk about what it's like to be a single parent with no father in the life at all. So more or less really raising your child alone, which I think is just, being a single dad is as difficult as it is. I can't imagine. Her name is Kristie. She was on our online dating show, and she was a barrel of laughs on that one because we let her say whatever she wanted. And boy, if you haven't listened to that episode, go back. It's the online dating too. It is a tickler, actually. It's pretty fun. Hi, Kristie. How are you doing today?
Welcome.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back. I'm good. How are you?
Oh, as hot as you are because you live in California as well.
Hot.
Good
really
stuff,
hot
right?
Today. Right now, I'd be swimming if I wasn't here talking to you guys.
Yes, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. I would, well, not to be lying, I would be at the park right now walking my puppy. So that's pretty much all I do now. My dog and, my kid. And that being said, that was a segue. We're going to be talking children. And we talked a little bit off the air before we got on about you being a only parent, which I thought was pretty interesting because I asked you if you would like to come on and you were like, yeah, I have an idea for this show. What do you think? And I was like, sure. I think it's an interesting conversation. We have a lot of female listeners across the country. So actually across the world because we're worldwide, just so you know. Just if that doesn't make you any more nervous, there's people all over the world. India love us, like crazy love us. It's pretty cool. But I want to hear your story really about what it's like and why, obviously, that you are an only parent. So I will give you the floor. Feel free to chat.
Awesome. So I obviously, just like other single parents, this is not my life plan. I didn't plan on being here at this point in my life. I have my one daughter, and her father and I were in a long relationship together, and we split up, and she was about a year and 9 months old when he unfortunately passed away. It was sudden. It was tragic. She was too young to remember him. Of course, at that point, you don't think about like, oh, okay, like I already, had a plan for this. Let me, go to plan B. No, that was just like sudden, tragic. It was obviously like at that point, this was 8 years ago? It was in 2014, the end of 2014. So I was still in my mid-20s then, and you don't, like I said, you don't plan on your life going that way. And so I obviously after him, I didn't date for a while because I was like, okay, I'm focused. I need to focus on myself, my work, my daughter. I don't want to bring anyone else in my life or her life because I don't have time for that. There are some regrets along the way. I feel like maybe if I would have made more of an effort to meet other people, then maybe I could have had more of like a father figure in her life. But I actually got really lucky. As soon as I had her, I actually ended up moving back home with my parents, and with my brothers, and they took us in, and they're amazing. So yeah, it being the only parent sucked. It was really awful. It's very challenging. It's been, even till this day, it's like so emotional. You have to fill like these shoes and answer these questions that like you're not prepared for.
Sure.
So you kind of just have to roll with the punches. And, you know, as questions come up or as certain scenarios come up or curiosities come up, you know, it's like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to say if she asks me this. I'm just going to, you know, I'm sure I'll be prepared when the moment comes. So I remember when he first passed, she was really young to remember. And I'm grateful for, you know, having pictures of them together and stuff like that so that I could have something to show her when she's 9 years old. So
sure.
When she was younger, I was always worried and so scared about, okay, one day she's going to ask, hey mom, like I'm in school now and I see all these kids that have a mom and a dad and I don't have a dad. Like, where's my dad? You know? And I knew that day would come.
Sure.
And so until that day came, I never had the conversation with her. Cause like I said, we moved back in with my parents, and my dad and my brothers are just angels on earth. They're so amazing. They're such like great father figures in her life. So she never really lacked that. It's obviously different having, you know, her own dad, but having my dad and my brothers like are amazing. It's like as if, you know, she never really lacked that father figure. But so she starts school, she goes to preschool and then kinder, and then eventually comes home one day and, you know, she's like, hey, so all these kids in school, they, you know, talk about mommies and daddies and where's my daddy? Why don't I have a daddy? And like, oh my gosh, like that was just a punch in the gut. It was terrible. Like even though I've tried to prepare myself leading up to that point for a few years, you just never really are too prepared for questions like that. It was hard. I remember, one of her first questions around that subject was when the movie Coco came out, and we saw it in theaters. And then I just remember driving home from the theater, and I look in the back in my rearview mirror, and she's crying, and I'm like, well, why are you crying? And she starts telling me, well, because I don't have a daddy. And Coco was just like looking for his family. And, you know, and at that age, she's like 3.5, 4. And I don't want her to have the impression that, you know, if he found his family in the movie, like that's how she can go and like find, you know, her other half of her family. So then at that point, I had to have that difficult conversation. It was around the same time she had started preschool and kinder, and I had the conversation of, well, she doesn't understand religion quite yet, but she knows that there's a heaven and that when people pass away, they go to heaven and all that stuff. And so we had that conversation of, well, you did have a daddy and he loved you very much. And he was around when you were a baby, but unfortunately God loved him too much. And he took him to, you know, he brought him up to heaven with him. And it's like, at that point, what do you say? Like, at 3-4 years old, I don't know how she could even comprehend anything around that subject. So I didn't even know, couldn't. So, and that's just what I came up with, you know, like he went to heaven. And
is her dad's family in the picture?
They were at first. So he passed the end of 2014, and they were in her life up until 2017. They made somewhat of an effort, and I was like, okay, well, they're the grandparents. I'm not going to push her onto them or force her onto them. If they want to be in her life, they need to make that effort and be in her life. And they just out of nowhere stopped. Yeah, like they would have us over for holidays, and I would take her to see them and stuff like that. And they would get her like gifts, Christmas, birthday, all that. And then so she was like at an age where she remembered them still. And I remember her asking me, I don't know, it was like 2018 sometime or maybe 2019, where she's like, well, I miss my grandma and grandpa. Like, where have they been? And like, what do you say? You know, like I I honestly don't know where they've been. They don't have the same numbers anymore. They don't reach out.
Wow.
I still have the same phone number. You know what I mean? I'm very easy to find on social media, and you could reach me. You have my number, but yeah, they, and then, so I saw it that way. If they don't want to make the effort, then why do I need to, like, this? If they want to be in her life, I'm not stopping them from, being in her life. So
For sure.
they need to make that effort, and they stopped. So I was like, all right, I get it.
Yeah, you can only do so much.
No warning or anything?
No.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, the only thing that I could see probably is that she reminds them of him.
Him. Yeah.
And there is that.
So, yeah, maybe yes and no. So they were very absent in their son's life too. He came from a very toxic household. He had a very toxic upbringing. So I don't want to talk down on anybody, but they weren't the best people. And
so they probably didn't help.
I didn't
the
really
situation.
expect much. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but obviously your family is in her life, so
Oh yeah.
So it's. I mean, again, not to try to play the good card, is at least she does have a good family atmosphere.
And that's what brings me so much comfort and peace. Like it brings me comfort and peace, but I know that she feels like there's something missing. And I can't do anything about that, but I do try to make up for everything else. Like that's what and people don't understand, like, there's people in situations where there is a single mom or a single dad, and there is a mom or a dad in the picture, but they're just absent. They're not there, whatever the situation is. But in this situation where, the other parent is deceased and there's no way to have the other parent in their life, you constantly feel like you're having to make up for that absence. And it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But my family's amazing. My family's amazing.
Mm-hmm. That's good that they are. But it is hard to make up for somebody missing from a child's life. It's impossible. There's no way you could do it. My daughter was adopted, and her family was alive. They just didn't want to take part in things. They had other priorities at the time and lost custody of her. And so I get, like, always trying to feel like you're trying to be more or trying to do better or being really hard on yourself because you couldn't do what you thought you should. That's got to be really hard when there's not anybody to even blame.
Yeah. And I know sometimes people probably, I get this question all the time, like, how do you do it? Like, you're always, like, I literally today, I woke up at 5:30 this morning. I, showered, got ready for work, logged on, worked. She has summer camp this month, so I'm picking up from summer camp. I had to get some groceries, plan for dinner, cook, make sure we're done eating and all that before 7 so that we can record right today. And then I'm like, okay, maybe I have like 10, 15 minutes to sit and just relax for a minute before I, jump on this call. And then, people ask me, like, how do you do it? And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I just do. Like, I have no other choice. You don't think about it. You just do, literally. Like, I have no choice. There is no other person to go to. Like, oh, hey, like, I'm stuck on a conference call, or I want to have dinner with my girlfriends tonight. Can you pick her up instead? Or can you drop her off instead? I just do. I don't think about it. So yeah.
I think things become very robotic when you are like that, because again, like I told you before, I was a single dad. I had custody of him most of the time, besides every other weekend. So I did the same thing. Get up, go to work. If he had after school care, rush over there to after school care, get him home, cook dinner, do his homework, make sure he's in bed by a certain time, because we have to do the same thing the next day and the next day and the next day. And I kind of agree with what you said, that you definitely try to make it up, because my son has siblings, but they're much older. His oldest sister's 15 years older than him. So like he's really an only child per se, even though he's not. Like he can lean on them, but more as an adult figure than his sibling. So I always tried to do the same thing. I tried to make up for it, and it can hurt and it can help. I think it's, it's a two-way street. You got to be really careful about how much you give them, because then they expect it as they get older. Because yours is young, thank goodness. You can still mold her. Mine will be 20 in December, and he is not moldable anymore.
Yeah. We do need to try to be careful how much we do make up for the absence of the other, but at the same time, like you have this guilt, like you feel responsible for the situation they're in. Like she didn't ask for this. She didn't, cause this. Like, why does she have to deal with this? Like that weighs heavily on me, like daily.
But same thing for you. You didn't ask for this, and you didn't deserve this either. So I think keeping that in perspective, like there was nothing you could have done to make the outcome different. So at some point, the loss just needs to be there for her, and you need to support her in it. But still, there's really, what could you have done other than what you're doing now?
Yeah, and it took me. I'm exactly what you say is how I feel now. Like I've accepted, right? But the first few years, I was just like a mess. It was hard because I felt like maybe there was something I could have done, or something I could have changed, or some difference I could have made. No, there's literally nothing I could have done, but I couldn't understand that the first couple of years. It was so hard. And now that she's at an age where she can understand more and I can talk to her more, obviously still, guarding her from certain things and being careful, like how I explain things or how much I say or how much I expose her to, like, she understands that, we can't change what happened. We just have to make the best of our situation. So,
yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to, like in my case, I think I made one small, well, not small, but I treated my young child, because I had him from 6 on, but around 9 or 10, like I talked to my kid like he was an adult, and I think it's going to be good for him later in life, but I think I took a small chunk of his childhood away. So I will tell you, make sure she has a childhood and it's okay to talk to her like a child, because I didn't. And I think that like my son, when he got older, like in high school, he hated high school kids. He said, these people are boring. I have nothing in common with them. They're all children. And I was like, no, dude, like you're a child. Like it's okay to still be like that. But he grew up in wrestling locker rooms with, 25-year-old men and talked to them like they were like that. And they talked to him like he was an adult. So that would be my only thing is, make sure that she really enjoys her childhood and let her live that, even though it's got to be super difficult. Like, and I'm telling you, I had someone to lean on. I can't imagine what you went through, mostly because you had to go through grief.
Yeah, because she was missing somebody that she loved and had a child with, even though you weren't together. That had to have been a huge loss for you, a devastating blow for your heart.
Absolutely. Like, despite our differences and despite how we ended, that's still my daughter's father. You know what I mean? It was just sudden, tragic, and then I remember just one day sitting there and thinking like, holy shit, like I am, I'm mom and dad, I remember one time this was a couple years after he passed. I was talking to a friend, or let's say an acquaintance, not really a friend, but an acquaintance about, oh, so what are you guys doing for Father's Day? And I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to barbecue for my dad and celebrate myself and him. And I remember just saying something about, I celebrate both Mother's Day and Father's Day. And they just thought that was really silly. And I'm like, well, I'm technically in both, so I can celebrate both. And just some people don't see it that way. And it's just disheartening a little bit. Like, there are dads that are both mom and dad, and there are moms that are both mom and dad. So I know that I'm not asking for, a pity party or whatever you want to call it. It's just that people need to recognize that this is, real life. Like, not everyone has both parents. And I feel like it's really rough for my daughter when it comes around the time where they're decorating Father's Day gifts, right? Like towards the end of May, beginning of June, when it's almost Father's Day and they're making their little things in elementary, and when she's older, I don't have to worry about that. But now I look forward to it so much because she's, bringing home all these things that she makes for me. It's the cutest thing ever. And so I remember her first year where she was actually able to do something, and she was like, well, so Mom, we're going to do stuff for Father's Day, but I don't know who to make mine for. And God, and for people that judge, like, oh, you're mom and dad, why do you celebrate Father's Day? Like, this is why I celebrate Father's Day, because my daughter came home from school saying, like, we're going to start making our Father's Day gifts in school next week, and I don't know who to make mine for, And I'm like, well, baby, you can make it for me. You can make it for your grandpa. You can make it for your uncle. You can make it for your other uncle. You choose. Like, you have so many people that love you, and you can, you literally can make it for anybody. And so it put things into perspective of how heavily it weighs on her and how much it kind of takes over her little mind too. And people don't think about that. I feel like it was just, it was a heavy moment.
Absolutely. There's something when I know with raising my daughter that I didn't have all the answers. And I was fortunate that I had my husband at the time to run stuff by and do things with. But ultimately what I came up with was enough. And I always try to tell people when they're in situations like, you just remember you're enough. You don't have to be anybody but you. You don't have to be perfect, because nobody is. And perfection is something that doesn't exist, because depending on your view of things is going to weigh as to whether or not you're perfect or not. And your daughter's not going to believe and view things the same way you did. And it's so difficult being a parent anyway. And then in your situation, I couldn't even imagine. But then on top of it, feeling like you're not doing enough or doing the right thing, just know that as a parent, everybody feels like that. And you don't have to be everything, because there is a village to help out, and she's going to there's going to be lessons and things she's going to have to learn in her life. And she's going to suffer through hardships. But at the end of it, if you just are who you are and you mother her the way you can, she's going to know her mom was there. And
I agree. Thank you for that.
It's hard because I'm looking at you because I could see your face, and you just look like it weighs so heavy on your heart. And I remember being a mom and everything weighed heavy on mine because my daughter wasn't biologically mine. And I was like, I just got to tell people they can't be that hard on themselves, because you're the one that is there, and you're the one that is doing, and you're the one that is her support. And again, you didn't do anything wrong. That him passing had nothing to do with you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I just find myself constantly having to remind myself of that. And you mentioned the village. Oh my God, my village is amazing. So they're there when I need them. They're there when I ask for help. But there's times where I'm just like, shit, like I need a break, and I just want them to sometimes be like, oh, here, just like give her to us. Let us take her off your hands. And, and she's not a bad kid. She is such a good kid. She's amazing. Like, she is such a delightful child to be around. So none of my family or friends ever mind helping out with her. But I just feel like I don't want to be a burden and always asking for help. You know what I mean? And so sometimes I'm just like, oh, I wish my village would just be like, oh, hey, do you need us? Like, we're here, instead of me being like, hey, like, I need you. Can you help? So right. That's also kind of like, oh God, I don't want to call them and ask them again, but I used to be like that where I'm just like, oh, I won't go to this place or do this thing because I don't want to ask for help with like babysitting or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And then eventually I was like, you know what? No, I'm not missing out on things. And when my kid isn't allowed to, when she's not allowed to be with me somewhere, then I just need to ask for help. And I, came to the realization, like, they really don't mind. I just need to ask. It just sucks, like,
well, it sounds like they don't.
There and,
it sounds like they don't want to step on your toes either. They know you're super independent. You're going to do your own thing, and they're just waiting to see where they could fill in, and that means you're going to have to help them figure that out.
Yeah, no.
And as she gets
right.
older, she'll just call them herself. I know my niece every couple of weeks, she's like, "Hey, Thea, can we spend some time tomorrow?" And I tell my brother, and my brother's like, "She didn't even tell me." And I'm like, "Well, she apparently needed something from me. I don't know. She needs something." So, and let her know that she's open to do that too when she needs somebody. Because teaching a woman to ask for help is a good thing, because women have been taught they can't ask, and she needs to know it's okay to ask.
That's probably why I have such a hard time putting myself out there and asking for help, because I always felt like, okay, well, I'm so independent. I don't need anybody's help, but I really do. I need like a lot of help. Like, I don't know if they see the SOS sign. I need help all the time,
But everybody does. You're not alone. Yeah. Everybody does.
Totally.
Even people that don't have kids.
Yeah.
Sure. Well,
Totally.
I'll go along the same thing of men. Men are supposed to be super strong and not ask for help. And I feel for you with what you were talking about needing a break. When I had my son, I was lucky that every other weekend I had a break, because there were days where I was having a breakdown, where I was just like, is it Friday night yet? Because I need to sit in a room with music on and not do anything just to decompress. I feel for you. I really do. And it's hard. And when you are right. Nobody wants to ask that question, because you feel like you're dumping your child on someone, even though you're not. That's the hard part.
Totally.
And being the one that gets dumped on, supposedly, I don't see it like that at all. I'm like, really? She wants to spend time with me? Let's go have some fun. Like, nobody's taking it like you're dumping on them, because you are self-sufficient and you are doing your thing. I'm sure of that. Nobody's looking at it the same way you are.
They're great. And I'm sure if they had a problem with it, I would totally, get that vibe from them. But no, everyone around me is so amazing. And you mentioned the every other weekend thing. Like, I remember when she was younger, I would have a harder time asking my mom for help with her, because, she was younger. She was a little harder to watch. She's more, more needy, more high maintenance. Whereas now she can do things more on her own. But I, would have girlfriends with kids where they're like, oh, well, I don't have my kids this weekend. They're with their dad. So let's do this and that. And I'm like, oh, I don't get the every other weekend thing. I have her 365 days a year. So let me see if I have help, and I'll get back to you. You guys make plans without me. And if I can join, then I'll be there. If not, then have fun. But yeah, so that part was really hard. But now she's older. She takes, care of herself pretty much. She can watch her own self. She just needs an adult around, because she's only 9 still. So it's easier. My mom's like, yeah, please bring her over. Like, I mentioned earlier, like, we moved back home when she was a baby, and she was like a newborn when I moved back home. It was like where they never really had a chance to miss us, because we were right there all the time. But her and I have been in our own place for about a couple of years now. And now, after we moved out and got our own place, they have the chance to miss her. So if I go a few days without going over there, they're calling me like, who do you think you are, keeping her away from us this long? Can you please just, like, we don't want you, just bring her over. So they have the chance to actually miss her now. It's like really cute to see that. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, more based on how I had to do something. So I did play mom and dad, I feel, as well. I lived in Vegas for 2 years, so I had them a lot, and I didn't have that every other weekend. I found it difficult to obviously play that emotional side, although I'm a very emotional person. So, but like, when people say things like, oh, like being hard on them or being the man part was easy. It's like, I knew how to deviate a boy around, but still, try to be there and be that person that would sit next to him and hug him and hang out with him and be more loving and motherly. Like, do you find it difficult? Probably not yet. Or do you think it's going to be difficult when it comes to those more questions that she would ask Dad? I mean, would you lean more on your father or your brothers if you needed help?
Absolutely. Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Like for me,
I think a man's perspective would be important for her too, not just mine. Because I might feel like I might be saying or doing the right thing, even though, I think of myself as being pretty well-rounded, as, being the mother, the nurturing mother, but also, I try to think of myself, like I said, as being well-rounded. I would think that I would be giving her the right answer, the right, guidance, but a man's perspective is going to be totally different. So I would definitely ask for my dad or my brother to step in and hey, even by then, if she has a stepdad, then I would definitely be like, okay, please step in, help out here.
Because I was a stepfather as well. And luckily my girls, when I met them, were 12 and 8. And I was lucky because I raised them both out of the house. So I consider them my girls. Like when people ask me about my kids, they're mine. I raised them. But I was lucky. They did kind of lean on me and ask me questions. Their dad was in their life, but not as much. So I was lucky. And when I had questions that were more motherly, I leaned on all my female friends because those were the ones that I could at least answer quickly until he had a chance to talk to his mother. Because it's hard on the fly to just answer a question when you're, like you said, sometimes they blindside you with shit and you're like,
oh yeah,
oh shit.
You're like, hold on, let me Google that real quick.
Yeah. Or you end up like doing that one where you're just like, and then you come off as being like, not stupid, but like, they're like, well, I'm waiting. Like, can you answer this? I'm like, yeah, hold on. So I do feel, I feel that it's a hard thing. And you know what? You should pat yourself on the back for Father's Day. Because here's where I kind of disagree with people saying things like that. You are filling that void, regardless of people on the outside, if they believe it or not. It doesn't matter because you're filling a void that's there through your family. So you're smart enough to say, hey, Grandpa's here, uncles are here, and I'm the one who's answering or being that fatherly figure on a daily basis.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, because sometimes dad has to be an asshole and say no. And that's where you're going to lean in and go, I said no and no means no. And I
literally told her that last week for something and I'm like, look, I can't say yes to everything. Sometimes I have to say no, and you're just going to have to be okay with that. And she's like, okay. So,
and I will warn you, girls, whoo, man.
It gets better.
I know.
Hard.
Yeah.
I have 9 going on 19. Trust me, I already know. She is all full of sass. My goodness. I'm getting
my ex-wife said the best thing. Her girls were great as young children, like up until about 7. Yeah. She said if I would have had a boy first, she would have quit, because my son was very much a crybaby. Boys are like whiny and like he stuck to her leg until about 10, and then he disappeared. Then he became his own person, going to his own room, played games, did shit on his own, started to become a man. My girls got to about teenagers and went into just the craziest modes in the world. So they're just two totally different things. And as a step parent, you could only do so much with those girls, right? I could only, because they weren't mine, my son, I'll go to my son, grab him by the collar and be like, I'll kill you. You're mine. Do you understand?
I brought you in this world. I'll take you out.
Take you out. Exactly. And I think that those are the roles you're playing. And it's a balancing act because you want your child to love you so much, but you know that you can't give them the world because they'll just take it from you. And I give you a lot of credit, and it's got to be a grind for you daily. Obviously, what you said earlier, it's like up in the morning and during the school year. I can't even imagine because I haven't done it in a long time.
Yeah,
it's crazy. So, what would you tell someone, one of our listeners, if they're going through this in the very beginning? Tell me what you would tell them within like the first 2-3 months of going through this. What did you do to get through this without obviously having a nervous breakdown?
So I thought the best thing for me at first was to just stay busy. I made sure I just kept myself busy. I filled my schedule up with stuff for myself, stuff for my daughter. We were always busy. So I felt like I never really felt my feelings. One thing I wish I would have done that I would highly recommend someone doing, especially if they are just going through it. And it's like, the beginning, the first year or two of going through losing someone, especially when it's, the other parent in your child's life, is go to therapy. I wish I had gone to therapy right away, talk to someone, because I think that it wouldn't have taken such a big toll on my mental health if I had done it sooner. Talk to someone. It's so important. And it's okay to not be okay, but it's so important that to just pause and feel your feelings. Don't mask them or sweep them under the rug, because that's going to hurt you more later. Big time.
It's good to hear, because a lot of people won't admit that. I think that's a big problem. Me and Tina have talked on many shows about therapy and the lack thereof, and people willing to actually understand that, maybe I'm not okay, or that I am okay, but I need to bounce this off someone who has nothing involved in the game, nothing to gain from it. And sometimes that's the best thing, because your friends, they'll listen, but a lot of them tell you what you want to hear.
Exactly. I was going to say that right now. It's so important to have an unbiased person in your life, in especially a situation this heavy. When he first, like my parents and my brothers, my family weren't his biggest fans. And so when I first told them, what had happened, they obviously were sad for me, and, they gave their condolences and all that. But so this part hurt a lot. They never, until this day, they never asked me like how I'm doing or how I feel. Like they never came to me to like talk to me, to make me feel like comfortable enough to open up and talk to them about my feelings. Like they never said, hey, like, how are you feeling after him being gone? Or are you okay? Like just because they weren't fans of him, it didn't mean that I wasn't like suffering,
Sure.
I don't think that people know how to deal with stuff like that until they've gone through it themselves.
Yeah.
Like if you've never been in that situation, how do you start that conversation? I think that people, because when my mom died 11 years ago, I had friends that were really close and they kind of stayed away. And then there was other people I wasn't so close and they were right next to me. And I wondered over the years, like why that was the way it was. And then as my friends' parents had passed, they were like, Tina, I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you, but I didn't know what to do. And I think that goes for death, like all the way around. If you haven't experienced it, what do you say? What do you do? I don't feel that they don't wonder. I just wonder if they know how to start that conversation with you.
Yeah. So they experienced death even before like me losing him. Like they had already experienced it, like from, my mom's dad, my grandpa passing, my dad's brother, my uncle passing, and us losing other family and friends and whatnot. They'd experienced it, but I just felt like maybe just because they weren't his biggest fans, they just didn't give or show as much importance to the situation. but despite their feelings towards him, like, put that aside. I am grieving someone who was such a big part of my life. I needed that support, or someone to come and say, hey, like, open up to me. Like, are you okay? How are you feeling? Like, what's going on? How are you now? And they didn't, but I do have some amazing friends in my life who definitely, would constantly check up on me and talk to me, and make sure that, I'm okay with what I was going through. But, and I don't have any, ill feelings towards my family for not, checking up on me. I get it.
It's just something you needed that you didn't get. We're looking at
the situation. Yeah, it was something I needed. I didn't get. And I get that it was probably hard for them to show me that kind of affection because of the way they felt about him. But like you said, Tina, they probably also didn't know how to approach it or how to initiate that. And it was just harder to not talk about it. Like, that's just also like the kind of household I grew up in is like, it was just easier to not talk about things. And so I'm like, I'm, damn it. Like, I'm 20 something now. Like, this was, 9 years ago. Like, I want to talk about my feelings. I want to share how I'm feeling. And they were just like, not about that life. So, I would, go to my friends and talk to them about it. And then, therapy was amazing. But I just wish I had more, affection and support from my immediate family. And I get it. I mean, they were there for me in different ways that I'll, forever be grateful for. But yeah.
Death is a hard situation to deal with across the board.
Oh, totally.
I'm
Everyone
here in El Paso
deals with it differently.
Right. I'm here in El Paso because somebody that was a mother to my friends passed away. So I got 5 different phone calls to be here from 5 different adults saying, I need you because I don't know how to talk about this. I don't know how to feel. I don't know what to do. And I find because I've experienced it so much that I'm now like, I'm the one that everybody calls. And what I hear more than anything is I just don't know what to do to make things better. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to act. I don't know how to approach it. I don't know how to feel. And I think that that's more where people on a general level come from. They just don't know how to do it. It almost takes, when my mom died, I had to say to people, hey, look, I need to talk about this because it's kicking my ass. And then they'd sit and talk, but most of the time they sat there very quietly because they didn't know what to say. But at least I got to say something. And I think with death, it's just one of those things where people they just can't get there. They just can't deal with it because it's so emotional and it's such a heated emotional situation that it's hard for people to just say, hey, what are you going through? Like, how can I help you? Not having the words.
People are tiptoeing. Walking on eggshells. They don't,
absolutely.
And it's human of us, right? But like everyone, like I said, copes differently, reacts differently, processes differently. So yeah.
I have a question. I'll be the question guy today. Has your daughter asked about her dad, like who he was, those questions yet? Because I can't imagine, like, because you're going to have to be his legacy, whatever that was, and obviously mostly through how you guys were together. You're going to have to tell the stories because obviously she was very young and thankfully you have pictures, because I was the guy taking pictures when my son was born. I only have literally about 4 or 5 of me holding him.
Oh, wow.
But there's tons of pictures of him because I took them all.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can't imagine you having to, because you're going to have to tell his story regardless of what it is, whether obviously good and bad, because if you want to tell the story of you being together and then not, or whatever it is, it's got to be hard, and those questions have to be coming, or if they aren't already.
Yeah and no. I feel like she's not at an age yet to ask certain questions at like I guess at a full capacity, because she, I don't think, knows the questions to ask yet.
Right, what to ask yet.
But yeah, what to ask yet. And so she'll ask some questions sometimes, like, did daddy like this or that? Or the other day we were passing by a lake and, I told her, yeah, he used to love fishing here. This is where he taught me like how to fish and stuff. And I know if he was still here, he would have loved to teach you how to fish, but he taught me, so I'm going to teach you how to do that. And so that was kind of like, it was a moment for us. It was another heavy moment. We go through a lot of those. But I feel like when we watch a lot of like shows and movies and stuff, and the way they portray, families on TV and moms and dads on TV, sometimes it kind of leaves her a little bit with, some questions or a little emptiness, especially when there's, a loss of a loved one or a death of a parent and whatnot. And so that will bring up questions and emotions. But I think that she's not at an age yet to ask, to know what kind of questions to ask.
Right.
And the fact that she does get emotional and it is heavy, that's also a good thing. Loss is a huge, heavy thing for anybody. And a loss of a parent, monumental. So the fact that she is grieving in little spurts as she goes through life, that's not a bad thing. I would say that's pretty darn healthy. You don't want her to not talk about it, and not deal with it.
Exactly. And I tell her, whatever you're feeling, whatever you want to talk about, I'm all ears. I want to talk. I want to cry. I want to hug. I want to, we can feel whatever we're feeling and then eat ice cream while we do it. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And so I tell her, whatever questions you have, just ask me. And so that's kind of helped develop our relationship too, to where, we have that bond. It's so important that I see her process her emotions. And she'll tell me sometimes, like I'll catch her in her little, waves of heavy emotion where she tells me, well, I miss my daddy. And to me that it's like, again, a punch in the gut, but it's like, you were so young when you lost him. Like to me, the question is like, how do you miss someone that you don't, like, you were too young, you don't remember him, but you still miss him. And that just goes to show how grief can affect even a child that doesn't remember somebody, but still misses them and knows that, that person was once in their life and loved them very much when they were here in, physical form and all that. And so I tell her, don't keep that trapped inside. Be like, come and talk to me about whatever it is. Ask me whatever it is. And so that helps us too. She's super open with me and she knows not to be afraid or shy or embarrassed of any question or curious ever. Like, I'm here, ask me, I'm an open book. So that's helped us a lot.
That's good. Because she should. Yeah. I mean, it's so important that you just talk about it. And like I said, you being the only person that's in her life at that level, the fact that you keep the communication open, I mean, what else can you really do? You can't. You got to let her go through what she's going through. You have to go through what you're going through and just let it be what it is and just support each other.
And I love that you're letting her live through experiences like the lake or whatever. If it comes up and she's going to ask you, oh yeah, did dad like this? Or did you guys do this or whatever? She's still going to learn who he was through you on shared experience. And those shared experiences are priceless. They're priceless.
Like, things. Did he like this sport or that sport? What was his favorite team? Was he a jokester? Did he like to crack jokes? Was he a serious person? Like, those are all questions that I get. So there are questions that I get, but there are, I feel like maybe questions that are just, don't come to mind yet just because, she's still so young. And so those are the ones I just have to be really prepared for later. I get the easy questions now.
I think the easy questions that you're answering though for her is solidifying who she is as a person, because she's asking you things like, was he funny? Because if she feels that she's funny and she knows that you are, she's going, oh, I got it from both of them. I got this from my dad, or I know this is mom. Those are also things that I think all kids ask, or all kids look into because I do the same with my parents. Like, I know where I get certain things from. Like you said, your family is not very open. My dad is like stone faced, but I know he loves me with all his heart. My mom won't shut the fuck up. And that's where I get this part from. So I know, so we all as children crave that thing of like, hey, where do we get these from? And I got my eyebrows from my dad, unfortunately. And then my kid got them too. But yeah, those are the things. I think that what you're doing is an amazing thing. And I know it's hard, but not on your level. And I definitely, I'll pat you on the back for Father's Day, because I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say to anybody that is listening to this and going through a similar situation, despite the differences that you had with that person, whether they're still, on this earth with us or not, I don't know what, there's single parents, and like we said earlier, there's, the mom or the dad is still alive, but they're just absent. Despite what your child's other parent is like or was like, despite your differences, despite what you guys agree or disagree on, it is so important not to paint that person as a villain or a bad guy in your child's eyes, because that is so damaging. It's so damaging for the child. And they are going to have this like image of this like monster in their head, and they're going to think like, oh, well, that's where, I must get my, monster side from, or whatever it is. It's so important just to kind of keep things civil, right? Keep it sounding good. Don't paint them as a bad guy, because you're damaging the child more than anything. And that's not fair to them, because at that point, they would have never stood a chance, and they all deserve a chance. Like, I think it's so important just to, not do that.
And not any person on this earth is all bad. Everybody has their demons. Everybody goes through what they go through. But ultimately, I believe in most people, there's more good than bad. So it's not good to paint just one side. But to be honest, you could be honest about both sides of how the person was, but not try to sway one side or the other.
Right. Yeah. Like no matter what they did to you or how they made you feel, like that's still their other parent. So you don't want to paint that image in their head, like of your experience with them, because now they're convinced, that's just how that person is, and that's just not fair.
That's the absolute. It's not.
Exactly. They're going to live that experience that they think they know. Yeah. And at the end of the day, look, kids will understand who the parents are regardless, whether it takes a little while or not. Mine realized who mom was, and she's not a horrible person, but there are the points that they realize on their own. You don't have to tell them. Not a day that I paint a picture of his mom being a bad person, because she's not. So, and I did my best. I made my son go visit mom. He would be like, I don't want to go. Nope. Got to go. It's your mom.
Yeah.
And and even if I knew I wasn't doing shit that weekend, I might sit and do nothing that whole weekend. But it's important. That's still your parents, and that's still your mom, and vice versa. It's kind of like grandparents. I don't want to go to grandpa's house. It's boring. I don't care. Get in the car. We're going. And mine used to say it all the time. Come on. No, we're going. And it's important. You don't paint that picture of bad of anyone. Let your children realize who people are on their own.
100%.
Keep them safe, but let them understand human beings, because they're going to do it regardless. We're all going to learn who people are sooner or later.
That's true.
Kristie, it's an amazing thing that what you've done. At least I think, because being a single parent, coming on here is a whole other thing. Being able to talk about it, and there's going to be many people probably hearing this, and I think that it's important, the message that you've given to our listeners, that it's okay. It's you press on, you do what you need to do. It's not easy. It's okay to get help. It's okay to talk to people.
And you're not going to be perfect with anything in life. So just do your best, and you got to let the rest fly.
Absolutely.
So keep your chin up, keep your head up. You're doing good.
Thanks.
Look, you've got through 9 years already.
Yeah, you got her through 9.
You got her through 9.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many more years do you have do you have to worry about it? Just another 70?
Yeah,
right.
You'll be fine.
Who's counting?
Who's counting? It's good.
Don't forget to enjoy it too, because it goes so fast. It goes so fast, and when you're worried about what you're not doing, you're missing opportunity to be in the moment and enjoy what is. So I always tell people that, because I was worried about being perfect and trying to do the right thing. And I wish somebody had told me, would you just shut the fuck up, sit down and enjoy her? Because I think if I had done that a little bit more, I would have felt better about things.
Someone had to tell me that. And I wish they would have told me sooner, because I feel like her first few years of life, I don't remember so much, because I was constantly thinking about the next move or the next day or the next moment or the next plan or whatever it was. Constantly, my mind is busy planning, thinking, not living in the moment. And then, and I finally, 1, came to the realization, 2, someone just finally said it straight up, like, just live in the moment, be in the moment, enjoy the moment. You're not going to get this moment back. And so,
right.
I'll do someone else that favor and say the same thing. Just enjoy the moment that you're in. Don't think about the next one, because you might not get to the next moment. So enjoy this one. Right. Correct. So someone had to tell me that, and I finally got it through my head.
My other thing I'll tell you is that you do have to take time for yourself, whatever that is. If it's a night out, if it's the spa, whatever it is, make sure that you take time for you, because that's just as
so important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You said earlier, Rob, that you sometimes, when you didn't have your son, you just want to sit there and do nothing and just just have the music in the background. I recently had that, where I had plans. They fell through. They didn't work out. And I didn't have her. She was already, with my parents or with a sitter. And I was like, what am I going to do? I don't have my kid. Like, I want to go out. I want to do this and that. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit here in silence, and do nothing. And I, literally did just that. And it was so beautiful. It was so amazing.
It's therapeutic.
But then I was like, oh, I miss her.
No, that's the balance.
Now.
No, there's no argument that there's the balance of that.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't, my son would leave on a Friday night, and I couldn't wait to see him Sunday afternoon. I couldn't wait.
Yep.
But there is that time in between where you can decompress, and it's okay to go and still miss your child. It's okay.
Totally.
But I agree.
It felt great.
Sometimes it feels awesome. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for an hour of your time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you guys.
It's always a pleasure, and you're more than welcome to come back on and talk about other nonsense with us, because sometimes it doesn't have to be such a hard subject. We talk about other nonsense, so it'd be fun to have you on again. Feel free to come back.
Yes.
Tina,
thank you guys.
Do you want to tell them where they can hear us?
You could hear us on Spotify, Apple, Google,
Amazon, iHeartRadio, all those cool places where you can hear podcasts.
Yes. And we're doing really well. We're down to only needing 8 states to have listeners in every state of the union here. So that's kind of cool. And
nice.
We're getting more countries, it seems like, every week. And please keep listening, follow us, subscribe. send us to your friends so that or share us with your friends so that they could listen to us too. And thank you all for listening so much. And Kristie, thank you so much for being on. It's always a pleasure when you come on.
Thank you guys for having me. It was a blast.
Hey, you know what's really crazy? We have somebody in Tennessee. Now, I have relatives in Tennessee, but I don't think this is. They're in Spring Hill. So whoever's listening, cool, you're catching up. And on that, this is a show of opinions, so don't get it twisted. We just like to have a good time. Feel free to come back every Wednesday and listen to us. And until next week, listen to the rest of the library. You guys have a good night. Thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.